IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Filter Koffee Podcast. Continuing with our best of series, we're going to listen to 2 episodes that talk about the journey of an idea. One of them is with probably the most exciting creator in the advertising industry right now, and the other is with a seasoned veteran in direct marketing. In Jigar Fernandes, I met a firebrand creator who probably had the most interesting career graph that I knew of. From an aspiring footballer to a self-taught copywriter to having created some of the most remembered campaigns in the recent past, be it the Ambuja Cement ad featuring the Great Khali or the most loved FIFA World Cup campaign, Meri Dusri Country, Jigar has come a long way. I spoke to him about his story and also about the journey of an idea in his head. Let's listen in. You spend the next 6 years in advertising before the Ambuja Cement Khali ad happens. Would you rate that as one of your best works?
Yeah, you actually, the thing is, if you go back and see the reel, you'll see interesting work. You know, it's like I didn't really certainly turn good overnight. That it's like you see interesting work and you say, hey, this is a cool ad. This is a cool story. And but it really didn't make for a viral like Khali. If you ask me, is Khali my best idea? No, it's not. Okay. There are much more. I thought Khali would be around 6, 7 in my pecking order. As for idea, there's a very cool campaign for Federal Bank which you did.
But before you go into that, what would define a good one for you? Why explain to us why Khali is not one of your best works?
I thought Khali was easy. I thought Khali was easy for me. I just felt that. I don't know. It's kind of weird to quantify, qualify, or justify something like this. But I'm fonder of other ideas.
To put this in perspective, when you see outside, the last 10 years, which are some of the campaigns that you really loved, which is not yours? What you said, that's great work. That's the kind of tough stuff I want to do.
A lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff.
Here's one or two.
So I love Nike, of course. A lot of great work happening there. A lot of some really obscure. If you see my list of 10 Can ads, I mean they might be a little different from, because they kind of really go after some idea which was so difficult to get, and somebody kind of got it, and then you say, oh shit, this idea was right there for the taking, but you didn't get it, because those ideas are kind of the most difficult to get. When I say Khali was easy, I don't mean to be derogatory in any sense in that. But when you look at a Meri Dusri Country, for example, okay, it was an idea right there. You saw it, but nobody said it, and this is happening across the world. It's not just India.
Right.
Across the world, there are so many countries which become passionate for a certain country during the World Cup. Right. For example, New Zealand. There'll be so many people in New Zealand who might be loving Argentina, but they never qualify for the World Cup. So this was a universal insight which was there on the table and nobody saw it. So it's so cool to grab that idea and say, yeah, that's cool. Khali also a part of the same bracket, because somebody could have done a similar one with Tyar Wrestler, but I think Khali was quite funny because of who Khali was. But it wouldn't have been the same with The Undertaker, for example.
Right. I actually explained that to us because, for an average listener who's not from the industry, how does an idea like having a Khali in an ad for a brand like Ambuja Cement, where does it start? What is the starting point of this process?
First thing is you have to be a responsible communicator. It starts from there. Responsible, when I say, I don't mean to be in the right or wrong way. Right. But I think you are being paid to communicate something. Okay, in this case, it is communicate the strength of cement.
Right.
The first objective, my personal objective as a creative person, is to say what is the best thing to do to meet this objective. Okay, it's not about me wanting to do something because I think this is creatively cool. Is what's the most honest way to kind of address that objective. You come from there. The honesty of that objective. The whole purity of this transaction between you and somebody who's paying you to think of a solution for his brand. Okay, he is in love with his brand.
Right.
He's in absolute love with his brand. Correct. He's living his brand. He's kind of living with it day and night. And he's telling you, an outsider, to come and say, hey, dude, get me a solution for this because I think you're cool. So what do you do? So the first thing is to say, let's be very honest with our work. Okay, let's not be cool just for the sake of being cool. See, creative or not, I might have had some failures in life, okay? But at least the attempt would always have been, you would have seen the attempt, the purity of the attempt, that this is made to sell something. This is made to convey a particular message. This is meant to help a particular cause. So you will see that, the honesty of that. And I think it starts from that. And then how does a person become, how do you get an idea? I don't know, honestly, because there's no science to it.
But in this particular case,
I don't know.
I think at this
Honestly,
point, Ambuja had done an ad with, was it Boman Irani? They did something before this,
So
right?
they did a Boman Irani ad in 2002.
Right.
And they claimed like a cement brand should own strength. It's like a no-brainer. And then they did it very well with Boman Irani. Because Bhaiya Diwar to take you nahi, that ad. It still runs.
Right.
And publicists had tried one campaign which kind of deviated from strength and went into a metaphor, a metaphorical wall between Hindus and Muslims, and that wall, we should not have these walls, and we should, sort of for strong walls go with Ambuja. So there was like a metaphorical space of going beyond the factor of strength. I just thought that somebody like a Ogilvy was kind of doing cool work with just one proposition on a brand like Fevicol. They have not deviated from Chipkata. That's all they've been saying for the last, I don't know how many years.
Right.
And have they run out of stories to tell on Chipkata? Definitely not. Can you say Chipkata for the next 50 years? Definitely yes. It's such a cool proposition for any creative guy to take, right? I said, this is great. You have a brand like Cement, and nobody is owning strength.
Right.
Because everybody is saying strength. Right. You take any cement brand, it is saying strength.
Yeah.
So how do you say it in a way that you claim strength? Or at least be considered that he is strong hai. मुझे पता ही नहीं ना कौन strong है. सब लोग strong बोल रहे हैं. You don't remember any message. So the idea was that it came from that honesty. But I have to say something that will register strength equal to Ambuja Cement. In a way, as much as possible. Right. But that's all you can do as advertising. So people enjoy the joke and say, nice and whatever it is. Maybe when they go and go to the shop to buy, or when their contractor says, kaun sa cement lena hai, maybe he says Ambuja. Maybe. That's all you can do.
On that note, we'll take a very quick break and come back right away on the Filter Koffee Podcast with the second guest on today's show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I also kind of wanted to make a couple of other announcements, right? So first, as I think I mentioned last week, I just want to kind of reiterate, we're going to be closing our SoundCloud channel at the end of this month. So if this is where you're hearing us, please maybe try and listen to us on something else, maybe the IVM Podcast app, maybe another app. We're on all kinds of different platforms. The other thing is a little happier, right? So for the first time ever in Asia, we have a podcasting award for shows made in Asia. And we're very happy to announce that a number of our shows have been nominated. Pesa Vesa, Tech Careers in the New, Varta Lab, and Junior One have all been nominated for these awards. Please go to the website asianpodcastawards.com and go vote for our shows. Come on, make us win, guys. On Cyrus Says this week, check out the episode we did with the cast of The Upstarts, the new Netflix series. On the Empowering series, Zarina is joined by stand-up comedian Shrija Chaturvedi. On this episode, Shrija talks about her journey as a stand-up comedian, the way she perceives her struggles, and what makes her feel the most empowered. You thought Simplified were done with celebrating their 150th episode? Not even close. Chuck, Naren, and Shriketh are back with the third part of their 150th episode. Make sure to tune in to see if your questions are featured. On KBCD, Farhad and Sunetru talk about the evolution through college life and their experiences that changed them forever. This week on Boundless, Natasha reads the poem calling out all aunties who pressurize us to be a certain way and shares her idea of a charming prince. On Golgappa, host Trupti is joined by actor and contestant on Big Boss Marathi, Neha Shitole. She talks about her experience in the Big Boss house and the politics in it. On Feeding 10 Billion, Ramya and Varun talk to food historian Kurush Dalal. They delve into the history of our food and how it dictates our future. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ayushi and Ritasha talk about celebrating girlhood on Girl Child Day. Together they talk about the situation of women and girls in the country and how important it is for them to have powerful role models, a sense of freedom, and the ability to exercise agency. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks about daydreaming and how one must engineer their imagination. With that, let's get you onto your show.
Welcome back. Our next guest for this week's episode is Sridhar. Sridhar is a veteran in advertising, and after leaving the industry early this millennium, he completely reinvented his career by becoming one of the most sought-after corporate coaches for thinking differently. His book, The Real Power of Ideation, is not only the basis for his workshops, but is also a great handbook on how one can think and ideate differently or solve problems differently, either solo or even as a group. I spoke to him at length about something that I've been struggling with in my area of work, which is to brainstorm more effectively as a team. Let's listen in. Brainstorming is typically how most of us laymen think about it is, you arm yourself with enough coffee and enough markers and a whiteboard, and you go sit in the room, right? Yeah. And then you're pretty much like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Right? And then someone starts the conversation,
right,
and you sort of then just continue, right? So that's the process, right?
Yeah.
How does the group dynamics sort of affect what you said? Is there a process to that as well?
Yeah, there is a process to that. For instance, the same old people working on the same old problem will come out with same old ideas. That's a given. I've seen it all the time. So first thing I do is that if a client is coming to me with a problem, right, I suggest to him that if you have 30 people in the room, not more than 10 should be involved in solving this problem in terms of having stakes in the issue. 20 others are experts in this issue but have no stakes. Whether you solve the problem or not, it's not their headache.
Right.
They will donate ideas freely and go away. In that kind of context, everybody now feels liberated enough to think differently. So first I set up the place differently. So we select the right kind of people. The place looks like a KG class kind of stuff, kindergarten school. There are toys, stress balls, soap bubbles, Play-Doh, other toys there, right, and so on and so forth. And nobody talks an idea. Everybody writes down every single idea on a Post-it. I'm like a headmaster. So please capture your ideas. Every idea is tagged, right? If your ideas are there, you'll say KN1, KN2, KN3, KN4, etc. I'll say RS1, RS2, etc. Right? And then I keep egging them on to generate more ideas. For instance, in one of the ITC workshops that we did several years ago, there are about 25 senior managers. In one day, they generated something like 1,200 ideas.
Oh, wow.
Now, the fact is, all of them may not be useful for us. But there is a high chance that there will be buried in the 1,200 ideas. There is something which is likely to be very productive and effective for us. But if I'm only saying, give me only ideas that will work, I will get only 12 ideas or 15 ideas or 20 ideas. And that's not good enough. And they may not be new ideas. First thing is you have to help them feel psychologically safe in that place. Nobody will attack them or their idea. Then you see what happens. That time they're like kids. If you want your kid to speak to you and every sentence she says something and you actually try to correct her, she will not talk to you. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
So that's the same thing here.
Yeah. In fact, the more you describe this, the more I feel the problems that teams face today across the board sometimes is if an idea doesn't appeal to me personally, right? And like you just said, if I voice it out too soon, then I'm also sort of sharing my bias with others in the room.
Correct. And
if a majority of them sort of resonate with it, you sort of pretty much kill the idea at that point, right? Is it important to have the right, and some of these biases are shared not just because, you relate to it. Sometimes you feel like, oh, he's the manager of this team, and if he has his bias, then he probably is right. Right. So is it how important is it to have the right hierarchy in the room?
See, hierarchy may be there for decision-making purpose. Okay. But for idea generation, there is democracy. Every idea is welcome. Everybody's idea is welcome. We will look at everybody's idea. We will not reject anything. The whole process is about selection, no rejection. Nothing can be rejected.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Right? And nobody can attack anybody's idea. So that is what my job is as a facilitator. I'm like a traffic cop. A traffic cop does not get into the traffic and drive. He only directs traffic. I direct people's efforts. I direct the way in which they generate ideas. Right? Make sure that they follow the process meticulously. If they're getting stuck in argument, I'll immediately go there like a hawk and sort it out. So I'm just saying there is a time for generating ideas, there is a time for discussing ideas, and there is a time for taking a decision on the ideas. Separate all three. Don't mix it. Otherwise, you tie your legs and try to run a race. You will not move any further.
So just to repeat that, you're saying there's a generation,
yes,
and then there is a debate, and then there is a decision.
There is no debate.
Okay, a discussion.
There is a presentation.
A presentation.
Right. What happens is like this. We start with the stakeholder, right? The person who says, I want new ideas. And he says, I'll ask him saying, what is your criteria for taking a decision? You tell me what are your criteria. So typically you'll say, I want to know the potential of this idea. Let's say, how good is this idea? What is the benefit I'll get if I were to implement it? Long term, what might be the potential of this idea? And what is it going to cost me in terms of time, money, resources, and all that kind of stuff? Right? Are there any other issues which I need to be aware of? Like, some kind of outcome, some kind of political implications or competitive pressures, whatever it is, or headquarters attitude, whatever, any of those kind of concerns. So the presentation that they make for a selected idea is saying, if this idea was executed, what are the benefits we can hope to get? What are the potential gains? How big can this idea become in our estimation? And what are some of the practical implementation issues that we need to tackle if this idea were to go forward? That is the first level presentation. That is good enough for any decision maker to say, go, no go. Right. So we are actually starting with the decision maker who says that this is what I want ideas for. And then he sees the presentation on this basis. So at that time they work together as a team.
Right.
So this is where the facilitation process is very important. I create a safe climate, right? I make sure that people are not getting stuck in arguments where it is not necessary.
Understood. But the last part of it, which is the deciding on which is the idea you want to go with, so to say, right? That is an equally tricky, if not probably the most trickiest of them all, right?
Correct.
In a way, I pick the idea that appeals to me as an individual again. Right?
Yes.
The same bias problem I had at the beginning, right? And what I've realized is how much ever you rationalize this journey, with data, or with logic, etc. How much ever you do that, at the end of the day, all of this will bring you to a certain distance, and from there it's a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Right? That final mile for an idea is a leap of faith. There's no charter for that. Right? But given that, how does one ensure that the best idea actually makes it out of the room?
See, it's like this. An idea is not a just born baby. It's a just conceived baby. It's conceived only you get news that the girl in the house has conceived the baby. You don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. You don't know it's going to be a doctor or an engineer. You don't know what is going to be the lifespan of the baby. Nothing. You celebrate, right?
Right.
Nobody attacks the baby. Same thing with the idea. At some point, when all this discussion has come, after the convergence has happened, at that time, it's more comfortable for the decision maker to take the leap and take a decision, because he now says that we have done enough of thinking on this. I'm willing to bridge the gap with my decision, with my experience. Right? If something has to be done, I know how to manage it. It is still not, or he can turn around and say, this seems like a possibility. Now let's do some homework. Let's put together a project team on this. They can do all the estimation, this, that, etc. and come back to me with costs and time and resources and all that. They can do that homework. That is necessary. But even for that to go, you need to first say, hey, the baby is concerned. Let's now make sure that she is delivered properly. That's the thing.
Yeah, but once the baby is delivered, right? I'm saying eventually, let's say you have 5 extraordinary ideas that you have identified through this process, right? But if you have a limitation of just going with one, how do you
don't need to be going with only one. You can say, listen, I want at least 3 ideas which are worth consideration. So as a decision maker, as a client, it is my prerogative to say it. I want the team to come back to me with 5 different options which we can pursue or examine, whatever.
Right.
He's the boss and it's fine. So if he tells me, Sridhar, make sure I get 5 ideas, give him 5 ideas.
I'm saying before you get to the 5, like for example, you probably get to 5 from about 20, right?
Or even more.
Or even more.
Yeah.
How do you let go of the other 115?
Okay, so there are possibilities in this. First thing is that many ideas are similar. If I take these 5 ideas, the rest of the ideas, many of them could be contiguous ideas to this. Many of them can actually become building blocks for this. They can become the base and the legs and all that kind of stuff. So there are lots of things that can be combined with this.
Well, that was this week's episode. If you want to listen to the full episodes, please do so on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And Filter_Koffee. That's coffee with a K on Instagram.
Look, up in the internet. It's a meme. No, it's a cat video. No, it's the Geek Fruit Podcast.
That's right. We interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, the Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar, and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.
What do we have to do?
Welcome to Water Play, you guys. This is the favorite sports podcast of several sports persons, such as myself, Dudeja, and Mikhail, who also happen to be the hosts.
Yes, you should definitely listen to our podcast for our take and quite a uninformed but hilarious take on sports every week. We give out awards, we discuss what happened in the world of sports, and
we take breaks as well.
We come up with jingles and sound effects on the go. So you should definitely give us an example of a sound effect, Dudeja.
Bolo Matthew Vade.
Yeah, tune in for some of that, bro. You can catch us on the IVM network every Wednesday on the go. On the Wednesday, in the Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, Water Player W, Wednesday W.
Wow. Wednesday.
Wednesday to Wednesday, Wade player, Matthew Vade.